Hello guys, welcome back to The Crew RMD story part number 2. Where situation is we are somewhere in April 2016 I think. I went to the story missions, had everything on platinum, skill tests and so on as I explained in the first video. Which brings us more or less to the next subject. Yeah, faction and PvP. You have all these faction missions. You have the so-called green ones, which are less than 10. They take less than 10 minutes, give you about 8,000 bucks, 8,800 if you have some perks on it in headquarters. Gives you 10% extra. Not only does it give that bucks, also from the reward card you get bucks. At that time, April 2016, that meant you got double bucks. So next to the green ones you have the orange ones, which are about 10 to 60 minutes, give you obviously more bucks, about 30,000. And then you have like the extreme ones, for instance this landmark tour is being the most extreme. So just a time 4 hours, yeah, if you push it a little bit you can get to 3 hours and 30 minutes, 3 hours and 40 minutes, something like that. 160,000 bucks with 10% extra from the perks is 176,000. And also from the reward card you get 176,000, which meant you get about 350,000 for this landmark tour, which I've done basically once, because it's a pretty long one. Obviously, I have done all of these faction missions once at that point. That's sort of the next step in my story that I went through. After completing missions, skill tests, finding all the car wrecks, the data stations, the landmarks, visited all of them, I went to do all of these faction missions. Also did those basically once. And that was it. Which left us with the next subject. PvP. PvP, which is in a racing game, multiplayer racing, that's always like, no matter what game it is, no matter you have a big map, and it's also a pretty good one for cruisers, this map, but no matter if you are a competitive player, a cruiser, a fun player, just want to hang out with his friends, whatever, at one point in time you're going to end up in multiplayer racing. And in this game that is one of the reasons to do that, or one of the features to do it, is PvP. It's one of the core features of a game, Ubisoft Ivory Tower. Keep that in mind. Let's see if we can find a lobby. So I went in there, obviously, as anybody else, as a bronze 4 player. More or less. Been driving there a little bit, and yeah, immediately come to the constatation run. Okay, this is fun. We can have some fun here. And of course, since we were bronze 4, I saw people being silver and gold and platinum. Yep, I found myself a new goal. And so in the next couple of evenings and nights, that is sort of what I did. I just I set myself a goal as leveling up 1 level every evening. So I played PvP. That could be like 30 minutes, that could be an hour, that could be 2 hours, that could be 3 hours. No matter how long it took to upgrade from bronze 4 to bronze 3. And then 1 or 2 nights later I went back into PvP, and I went from bronze 3 to bronze 2 to bronze 1 to silver 4, and so and on and on and on and on. So I don't know, played somewhere between 15 and 20 evenings of PvP, and then I reached the platinum 1, which was the goal. And then I more or less went out of PvP because doing all those races, I also found a few things wrong with it. First of all, you have, if collisions are on, you have the rammers about. I'm not a fan of ramming at all. Also keep that in mind, Ubisoft Ivory Tower. If you come up with some sort of a ramming event, it should be in some sort of arena, whatever, and keep it there. We have enough rammers as it is in this game, as in any other game. Probably the reason for that is GTA 5, where people sort of go aggressive about, and then they come to another game, whether it being The Crew, Need for Speed or Forza. They see another player, first thing they do is start ramming them. no idea why, but yeah, it just is what it is. But I'm not a fan of that. Of course, you can put the collisions up and everything like that, and what most racers do, but it's a bit double here, because you also have like the really strong slipstream. If the slipstream would be less strong, you could put the collisions up every time and then you could just have like good races. But seeing the slipstream is so strong in this game, yeah, it's probably a better idea to put the collisions on with the risk of being rammed all over the place, but then at least you can like kill the slipstream a bit, because they cannot slipstream too close or they will hit you. That is more or less what happens. It's a bit of pro and con. You have the collisions and at the same time you have the strong slipstream. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna put the collisions on with the risk of being rammed, or you're gonna put the collisions off when then you're gonna get like some slipstream ghosting going on if people know what they are doing, and yeah, then you're more or less toast. Because if 2 or 3 of those people can get into a ghost slipstream, they just take off and there's no way you can catch up with them. So it is like, yeah, it's a bit double. It's not a good idea. Slipstream is too strong, and yeah, nevertheless you have the rammers as well, of course. We have traffic, we have collisions on apparently in this race, so it's gonna be bloody interesting. What are we gonna take out? I don't know. McLaren F1, why not? That brings us to the other problem. 85 performance specs, and performance, that means a LaFerrari, and more specifically the Pagani Huayra. One of those two is very often going to win the race. You have some exceptions on some of the tracks, like this McLaren, occasionally it works. You have the overpowered NOS related Lotus XGs, that's also an option. Stuff like that, that is what you have. But 85 cars, a lot of them are not really used. You should be able to, like, for instance, do like races with only muscle cars or something. That would be way more interesting. You more or less have that occasionally in the summit, which I will do in the next videos. But summit, you sometimes have like only sports and muscle cars can be used. The Dallas track. Dallas Showdown, one of those tracks, pretty popular, very often gets picked in these more or less voting lobbies. But at least it's not limited to some speed list or to some 4-race lobby where XP matters. If, of course, referring to Need for Speed and Forza now, but here you have about 120 races, 5 different specs that you can choose from. It gives you more of a racing feel in this PvP lobbies. Very interesting that you also get like a black screen after one race. It all depends a bit on who is the host of the lobby. If that guy has a bad connection, you might get all kinds of strange situations happening within PvP. That's the other thing. Peer-to-peer connection instead of just like an open server thing where everybody just joins the server and more or less the server is the host. No. Here you get like one of the 5, 6, 7 or 8 players in the lobby is the host, and if that guy is far away from the rest of whoever is in here, then you get this kind of situation. Next to that, of course, you have like after one race, half the lobby leaves you because, yeah, I'm dealing with bronze 3 and 4 players here, or 2, whatever. I'm platinum 3 at this moment. The reason for that is one point decided to downgrade, go back to bronze 4, but yeah. After a couple of evenings I realized that it's gonna take way longer than I anticipated. So I sort of gave up. I lost quite some points, eventually managed to get to level 3 or platinum 3, but that means that you still have to go all the way down the gold lobbies, silver lobbies, and then all the way down to the bronze lobbies to get back to bronze 4. That's a lot of losing races, more or less. But that was sort of yeah, the next step into the racing aspect of this game. After doing story and everything, PvP and faction. Went through all that, did all the faction missions, and played a couple of nights of PvP. Till eventually, after a couple of weeks later, I was Platinum 1, and then I stopped playing PvP due to the too strong slipstream and ramming, collisions and all kind of that's not my kind of racing. So I sort of say, okay, I will stick with the Platinum 1. At that time in time, it was also April, May, yeah, something like that, 2016. The problem was also because I had Wild Run, which in my opinion is probably the best expansion ever in any racing game, because it brought so much. It brought not only brought it summit competition, it also brought new specs. You had like drag coming in, monster spec, drifts. You had the bikes. Later on, also more or less related to the Wild Run is the free drive stuff, free drive stunts. Well, not so important, but the free drive challenge was like a way to set your own races. Unfortunately, they kind of messed it up by only giving us 10 checkpoints on such a big map, which made the GPS go like crazy at times. It should have given us way more checkpoints. If we would have like at least 50, preferably 75 or 100, then we could have done like really cool long road trips with checkpoints on the points where we wanted them every time you change direction or something. Now if you drive from Seattle to Miami, which is about 250 kilometers, yeah, and you can only put 10 checkpoints. The GPS gonna go crazy on you. You're in a performance or circuit spec. Sometimes it's gonna want you to go over a dirt road and such. But also in, I think it was April 2016, they did an update. And that update sort of had a few consequences in that way that PvP at the time was more or less yeah, a bike race. That's more or less what it came down to, because in street, dirt and raid, the KTM 450 was the best out there. Those bikes were they were handling so good and they were so fast that there was nothing that could follow it. So no car made it into that. For performance and circuit spec, it depended a bit on the track. If you needed something with really good handling, you probably were gonna end up with the BMW S1000. If you needed certain tracks with more speed, then you ended up with this thing. Kawasaki Ninja H2, which also at that time we did not have as many bikes as we do have now in the game, so it was one of those two. It was either BMW or Kawasaki for the, let's more say, the racing specs, and then for street dirt and raid it was the KTM. 12,300 kilometers I have on it, so yep. Meanwhile, I think, although I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think they kinda improved it a little bit again. Because that April patch, that totally killed it. Which, in a way, I don't have a problem with that. Although, I do prefer the handling for the bikes before April 2016. But I can understand it, because people that did not have the wild run, they had a big issue in PvP, because they, since they did not have the wild run, they also could not use the bikes. And yeah, that was a bit of a problem, since everybody was winning on the bikes in PvP, and you did not have a bike, yeah, then you could not win. If you knew the tracks and people knew what they were doing, the bike was always going to win. So they have patched it up, and suddenly it was more or less the opposite. Suddenly the bikes had hardly any handling. But as you can see, I'm sort of flying through traffic here, although on the highway it's kinda okay now. And I think they repatched it a little bit on one or two occasions, and always made it a little bit better again. But it's not like it was in April 2016. But it is improved, and you can sort of, like just what happened there was like one ambulance changing lanes. With the April 2016 patch, I was just gonna completely smash into that thing, because there was no way I could react fast enough and make the bike do whatever it is I wanted it to do. So I don't know at which point, but at some points in time, probably also related to calling all units maybe once, and then the other time I don't know, they did like 2-3 repatches for the bikes, which make them a little bit better again. Not like before, but at least they are drivable again, which at some point was yeah, really not something you could say. It's still a bit hard to take corners with them if it's like really 90 degrees corners or something. Still a bit of a problem with the bikes. But at least they work again a little bit. Of course, moving to the summit, that will be the next subject, and that will be probably maybe even in 2 videos, because yeah, as a competitive player I ended up in the summit at one point, and that's where it all started over again, in that way that yeah, it's totally became a new story. From being a complete nope in that thing, as starting to get my name into the leaderboards, and get invited by some teams, made my own team at one point, to yeah, with a team with 5 players, being in the top 5 overall in the summit. That's sort of the progress from the summit. But that will be for the next subject video in the RMD story. I will see you guys then, and bye for now.